You're listening to Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran Podcast.
Now introducing your host of Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran, the one-man show Bryant Roof.
Hey, what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have another great interview lined up for us. But before we get started, want to talk a little bit about the website. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, please go and check it out. It's edasUSMCvet.com. You can check out all the interviews and all the episodes from season 1 and 2 on there, as well as we have nonprofit organizations on there as well. And we also have veteran-owned businesses as well on there that you can check out. So when you have time, go check out the website. It's an easy place to go, watch any of the episodes or interviews. You can just go right up to it, check it out, check out the description, all that, and see if you would like to watch it. But we won't keep our next guest waiting very long. Dr. Aaron Bryant is back. He is an Army veteran, and what we love to do on the show is highlight our veterans and everything that they got going on and let them have a platform to share it and get it out to the masses. So we're going to go ahead and have our next guest on, and it is Dr. Aaron Bryant. What's going on, brother? Welcome back, man.
Hey, thanks for letting me come back, Brian, especially on short notice. We just knocked out that previous show, and I'm back.
Man, bada bing, bada boom, just like that. But hey, let's go ahead and, last time you were on, you got to share all your experiences in the Army, talk a lot about what you do and what you're one of those guys that just keeps achieving more and more and more and doing more and more and more. But, you're back again because you're out there wanting to spread what you got going on. And let's hear all about it, man.
Yeah, so last time on the last show, we talked about my book, Mental Balance, that I had published. It was basically it's like a guide, and it was like a very conversational piece related to us trying to figure out techniques and tactics, ways of being able to balance your own, things you're dealing with, the trauma, the PTSD, et cetera. And it was for everybody. It wasn't just veterans, but the focus gave everybody some perspective. Well, since then, I've been working on some things. So actually, I've been working on this for about 9 years, but I've never taken it to a point where I wanted to formalize things. I've been doing coaching for a number of years, and I've been doing it voluntarily. And at this point, my schedule has gotten just full. So what I decided to do is I put some things together, and I worked with a company who has helped me market this. And now we're able and in a position to where I can offer opportunities to veterans and family of veterans to jump on board, become a certified coach, and the best part is we're going to give them clients. I mean, I've gotten so busy that I can't manage it all. And there's so much demand for this field that I said, okay, you know what? Let's formalize it. And I'm going to offer an opportunity where people can basically become certified coaches. And this is through the Fowler International Academy of Professional Coaches. It's all a legit organization. You get a certificate and everything, but you got to get training, obviously. And then from there, I'm going to bring you on board to my company, and you're going to be a certified coach. And we're going to coordinate that with another company I teamed with. And based on that, we're going to get clients for you. So in summary, if you're somebody who's looking to either make some extra money or you're unemployed, you need to go to my website. You need to get the information, and you'll be in touch with me, and we'll get you going and get you certified. And I am a master trainer, which is why I've been able to do this. And then from there, we're going to get you transitioned to where you work with my partner. When I mean partner, it's like marketing firm. And what they're able to do is to solicit the opportunity to get clients, and those clients will be yours. And as a certified coach, you're now doing what I do. You help people, and you're getting paid for it. And that's kind of what I wanted to get on your show and help me put out there for everybody.
Absolutely. So, let's dive in a little bit more into what it looks like, to go down this course and what are some of the benefits that you can get from this. I know in today's environment, man, we're starting to lack leadership, right? Everybody wants to rely on someone else to do it for them,
Right.
and or don't know how to lead, right?
Yeah.
So, kind of take us down down the walk of all this.
So that's a great question, because what's interesting is that I got into this because I did it for myself. I got to the point, as vets, we do the normal go to VA, we go see our therapist, and you're kind of just going through that whole rigor mortis. And I got to the point where, and again, I'm preaching to the choir, to you and your listeners, we get this turnovers with these psychiatrists and psychologists. They come, they go, they quit, and we get frustrated. We're tired of repeating ourselves. They go into the file, they read our file, and the next psychiatrist says, "Okay, well, I read your file, but why don't you give me perspective of what I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? Let me start taking control of myself." And that's kind of what my mental balance book was about. But realistically speaking, I wanted to understand more about how to motivate myself, how to become a leader, yeah, I was Army Ranger, special ops, absolutely did all that. But there's a point of transitioning in the real world and being able to find yourself acclimated to how to work in the executive office, how to communicate with other people, and all the different categories. Sometimes you need a little support and guidance, and I dug into that. However, as a coach, we have found that even if you think you have all the answers, or you're still feeling like, I'm able to achieve, there is still guidance that you could leverage. It's like having a best friend there. It's like having a mentor there. Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, all these people who are very successful all vouch for coaches, because it's somebody who's externally looking in and looking at your skill sets and giving you that extra guidance. And based on the training, our coaches are able to take some of that and actually apply it to themselves. So I found it beneficial, because as I am learning, years ago, I was like picking up things and learning things, and I was realizing some of the tools that I was learning I could apply to myself. So it's a reciprocation of, while you're training and learning. And by the way, you can get certified within a week. You can get certified in a matter of months. It just depends on how much you apply. But the ongoing lessons that you get from this is going to be lifelong. And that's the benefit of being a coach, is that you could have a client to help them, say, reach a promotion. Client might only be with you for about 3 months. But then you may have somebody who has a career to, say, real estate, and they constantly need you to keep them on track, keep them motivated, help them learn how to become from a realtor to a top realtor, to becoming a broker, to being able to open their own real estate office. These are some of the evolutions I have dealt with people, and our future coaches could do the same thing. And there's different categories of coaching. It's not always just life coaching, executive business. We even have military support. We have all these different categories. And again, they're all available to anybody who's interested. And the best part is, the reason why I say join my company is because I know sometimes it's a headache to get a business license, get your federal EIN. You have to pay all the marketing. You know this, Brian, for having your website. You just mentioned it for them to join. And you got to do search engine optimization, because you want to raise your platform to top of Google ads.
Right.
All this stuff costs money, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt there.
Exactly. So if you're somebody who's just not really interested in having to do all of that, you could just basically, as an independent coach, you just come on board. I already have all this set up, and you come on as an independent coach, and you can leverage my platform and get clients and start helping people who could use your expertise.
That's great. And I think that as individuals, it's important sometimes to have that constructive criticism, kind of, someone there that's gonna tell you what you don't want to hear, right? But you need to hear it, and you need to hear it, but you don't want to. But you have
Right.
that person there that's gonna be like, "Hey, no bullshit. I know you're bullshitting right now. Like, you're just coming up with excuses, and
That's
someone to
right.
hold you accountable, right? And that does help a lot. And I can see why it would be beneficial to anybody that was like an entrepreneur or just wanting to run a business or even just a manager, inside of already established business. I mean, um, and it also is a thing like what I was hearing from you as a coach. You're gonna learn a lot from the people you're coaching, and you're gonna deal with different personalities,
Yeah.
different, things that what makes people tick, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? Because some
Yep.
things is money, sometimes it's people, sometimes it's whatever. Some everybody has different motivations, so you
Absolutely.
can learn a lot just in general. I think as a coach, getting a different perspective from everybody else and looking at how are they going through this as right now, prior to having a coach, and then th while having a coach, and then after having a coach,
Absolutely.
and see the actual transformation of how their decision making maybe has changed, or maybe even their thought process on what they've done has changed.
Yeah, it's I just did a podcast earlier today with a company that actually focuses on athletes, and they approached me and they said, "Dr. Bryant, we'd be interested in you to talking about mental health because we're having athletes that have those concerns." And he says, "Is that something you could talk on?" I'm like, "Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the reasons why golf has integrated with the military. Now we have this organization called PGA Hope, because the PGA Golf has realized, and for some reason is tied into Veteran Affairs or whoever was the mastermind behind it, they realize how much it helps with our mental status. And so, yeah, this is definitely. And years ago, even before PGA Hope was started, I did an interview on how golf had helped me with my mental status. And I did this probably, I think, 2009. And it was so important because PGA Hope, and being a golfer, as you can see behind me, I've been doing this and realized this long time before they even made this sort of thing official. So in everybody's regional area, you could probably find a PGA Hope organization that basically supports military. But my point is, this podcast asked me to talk about it. And in our collaboration now, they're talking about athletes leveraging this in all different sports. We're hearing, like, for instance, Naomi, this popular tennis star. After she won, I believe it was the Wimbledon or maybe the U.S. Open years ago, she went through this transition when she started having a lot of mental problems, and she made it very apparent. And we're starting to see more and more athletes are struggling in this field. So if you're somebody who is a coach, you don't have to focus on just executive business. You can transition this into anything where somebody feels that they are struggling. Mental health and coaching, whatever platform you choose, the tools come from the things you learn and how you apply it. And you can choose different areas and fields. And I always tell the people who come to me, find something you're passionate in. Your main foundation of certification starts with life coaching. And then you go from there and you can expand to the different areas. And we have approximately, I think the last count was over 200 different areas. There's holistic coaching, fitness coaching. We even have something that's for disabled individuals. I mean, it goes across the board. But it comes down to what it is that you're passionate about, but you got to start off with the basics and get the tools. And then you can create a business or come work with me, because my goal is to have all of these different categories on my website with that person's profile and certifications. And when clients come in, you basically are managing those on your own time, your own hours, virtually, or you could do, conferences in your own city, however it is you want to go about it. But it'll save you a lot of headache and work where you don't have to go and start your own thing. You can just come right to me and we can go from there.
So with when you're coaching, nowadays, it's kind of nice that we have the ability to have video uh conversations and stuff like that. So you don't necessarily have to have an office, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um this it can be your office, right? I mean, at your house. So that's kind of, I think, the unique thing that's kind of nice with it too, right? Is
Yeah.
some of these people excuse, they don't like to leave their home, or they got social anxiety. Well, hey, sounds like this is an opportunity where you can have still a interpersonal relationship with someone without having to leave the comforts of your security, you know, um, which a lot
Yeah,
of people struggle with as well. I think, this is becoming probably more important than people will ever know,
yeah,
because the mental health crisis is really on the rise, and it's been more acknowledged probably I would say in these later 2000s, and like around 2010 or so, mental health really started coming out, and people started focusing on it more. And now we come to find out we're all mental cases, right? I mean, everybody's yeah.
yeah. I'd be surprised to meet anybody who thinks they're not and don't have any kind of challenges. But you're
Right,
absolutely
right. I mean, from childhood trauma to just any your life experiences, and in today's environment, we are subjected to a lot more things than we ever have been before because of social media platforms.
right. Yeah,
And YouTube and all these TikToks and everything that the young generation has a lot more access. When I was a child, we were out riding bikes and building forts and throwing rocks and running and doing all those crazy things. Now these kids have access to things that stress them out, right?
yeah.
So we're gonna need way more platforms, opportunities for people to have a area to help with these PTSD or mental health issues that are really starting to plague us.
Yeah, and the trauma, crosses the planes from, you have verbal abuse, you have mental abuse. I mean, your relationships. You mentioned how social media and all the Instagram and TikTok, you get caught up where you're looking at, like, hypothetically, you say you have a guy who's married and he's constantly looking at all these beautiful women and he sees all these, Instagram models, and he's getting to the point where you're looking at your spouse and you're going, why you don't look like her? Why is she, every time I see her, she look like that? And you start finding that you're having challenges in your relationship. Well, we got relationship coaching, so help you figure out how to, maintain some sort of discipline in your life, being able to regulate the times on your phone and with your family, how to regulate your being a parent. Coaching crosses the realms of different things, and again, sometimes we just need a little extra guidance. Like what you said, somebody who will talk to you candidly, and that is important because the relationship between a coach and a client is key. I have a particular model that I created. It's called Mastery of Life. I actually created it, invented it, it's getting trademarked. And what it goes through is the process of a coach and a client and being able to get them to a point where, again, taking control of your life. I believe, and I've always preached this in my podcast, in my book, that it comes back to us, regardless of whatever type of status you're in. And now we're even holding our veterans accountable for this. Do not just keep going to the therapist and just allowing whatever psychiatrist, psychologist who's in front of you to just keep giving you all the meds and all the pills, and you're just doing whatever it is they're doing. Because I was there, I did that. And it was a critical moment in my sessions with an outside counselor because I was lucky enough to have private and VA. And I remember going to a session where this particular doctor told me, particular therapist mentioned how I was like a zombie in this particular session. I didn't realize this, but she caught that my interaction and my demeanor was like, zombie level. So she goes into the system and she types in and she pulls up my meds and she's looking at these, and she just had a very candid conversation with me. And I think that was the moment I realized I had to take control back. And not to say I ignore or alienate everything that I'm being taught, because I do hear it. But at some point, we know ourselves better than anybody else. So when do we take accountability? Now, we can do this the best we can, but having a coach who's going to understand you, who understands what you're going through, that person can help provide some of that motivation. Maybe that coach is your parent or your
Little
sibling.
tough love.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But with training,
Right.
because there's a point of understanding how much, what to do, what path, what tools, what techniques, and that's important to have that. But again, you're absolutely right. There is definitely a reality check, and we need that sometimes.
Yeah, it's good. Like I said, it's crazy how sometimes when you're going through something and you talk to someone and all of a sudden s- things start to become a little bit more clear to you, or
Mhm.
maybe you get, it's weird how much more someone can sometimes kind of, wipe that fog away and say, look at the picture.
Yeah,
Because sometimes we even get caught up too in those everyday ruts, right? Where you just kind of start going through the motions every day. I wake up, I do this, I brush my teeth, I shave, go to get in my car, do my
yep.
coffee, go to work, take my lunch break, come back home, I'm tired, go back to sleep. I mean, that's
I've
just
been there, done that.
right. I mean, a lot of people do that, right? It gets that way, and then everything else kind of starts to suffer because you really kind of get like really stuck in this whole rut, and then life all of a sudden starts passing you by. Time goes by when you get in that zombie like state, kind of, right, where
Yeah.
you're just kind of going through the motion and stuff. So it's good to have someone there to kind of break that from you and get, because I think sometimes we hit that plateau, or even that area where you just feel like you can't, you kind of hit that ceiling. So you
Yeah.
need someone else to kind of break that ceiling for you and say, no, there's more to the sky than that roof, right?
Brian, what's scary is that, for your listeners who's listening to what you just said, you made that sound pretty boring. But here's the scary part. I have a friend who didn't have a boring life. He was actually a cop, law enforcement. He was actually part of an elite unit in the law enforcement. So you would think that his life was pretty exciting. He was a former Ranger, because we do keep tabs on each other as Rangers. We have all of our little private groups and all this. And he was a former Ranger and he committed suicide. Now you would think, like, how is it that this guy who already went through a psychological background, he's got an pretty exciting life. He's a cop. He's out on doing different things, and not patrol. He already had gotten past that point. He's actually doing some pretty intense task force type thing, and he was on the rise. And yet, he still, at some point, unfortunately, made a decision he cannot take back. And again, this is one of the things where I wish I had had more interaction with him to be able to get to know him, to talk with him. And I want to be clear about something. I'm not talking about as a psychologist or a therapist. I'm talking about sometimes coaching could just be that other individual who can work with you in identifying things and you applying tools.
Yep.
It's not crossing. I'm not talking about giving them. I am a doctor, yes, and I'm actually studying to become a psychologist. I'll be done with that soon. But I do that only to give myself more nuggets to be able to
Sure.
help my client. But from a coaching perspective, you still can be able to support somebody and give them guidance. In fact, one of the things about coaching is that we don't have to worry about all of the rules and responsibilities that therapists and the confidentiality behind being a psychiatrist. We as coaches, like you said, you can talk to them straight up. You can really work with them on tools. You can give them ultimatums like, hey, you need to do this. Look, think about this. Why are you doing this? Why are you not talking to this? Or here's what we need to do. There's a way you can approach it that coaches have a little more flexibility in doing versus your therapist who is limited with a specific time and has restriction based on medical licensing and clinical responsibilities. So I always advocate a coach gives you a little bit more based on some of the tools that they're trained for.
And not only that, but I imagine, a coach client relationship starts to form into a friendship,
Yeah,
brotherhood,
absolutely.
or whatever it may be, because when you start going through things and you start learning a lot about each other, you start having that respect, and ultimately you start to care, and it just, it plays that whole part. So it's a little bit more intimate than
Yeah,
when you go see that psychologist who's already seen 6 or 8 other people today, and you're just that hour or half an hour time slot.
Yeah,
At least with this coach, and they may have other clients, but it's different because also as a coach, I imagine you want to see that's another payout for you, right? Is to
right,
see someone doing great, and that you're like able to give them the seed, and it's how do they nurture that seed? How do they feed that seed? Because that's all we could really do. Or you could give them tools, garden tools, but how do they use those tools is what it's good in. I think sometimes there's a way of telling people things, right? There's a way that they'll listen to you versus feeling like you're like pushing it on them, right?
yeah,
Like suggesting or finding a better way of finding a way that makes them want to receive it, not like, oh, this
right,
motherfucker, and then like you start to get that level, like, I don't even want to see him today, like it's just
right.
gonna bug me. So I imagine as a coach, you got to learn that way of how to distinctly get into that person's head without making them feel like they're being attacked or being made to do it, right?
Absolutely,
Because
absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I created my model, Mastery of Life, because I talk about that. I call it Path of Roadway, because that is part of building that relationship with that client. And a lot of the different methods of coaching that are out there, and there's so many. Everybody has coined their own version or whatever, and to get their particular certification, but very few of them provide some of the specific details of the relationship with the client. And the reason why I did this again is because most of the clients that I work with are veterans or people of trauma, because I focus on mental health. I'm a developmental health coach. And I've actually created that. You hear developmental coaches out there everywhere, but I put in developmental health coach because for me, the emphasis is the mental health. And the bottom line, the first thing I have to establish is the relationship. I cannot gain their trust. I cannot be able to get them motivated about anything until they have some level of trust in me and understand who I am. Where am I coming from? When I am my, as a professor at the university, day one, you got to, when I used to teach for Bryant University, which is basically, I think about 80% military or veterans, and you're in the class, they walk in, and first thing they're looking at you, I mean, can you imagine have all these vets or military active duty in your classroom? You got a lot of A-type personalities in there, and they're ready to
yeah.
chop it down. And my teachers, the other fellow teachers, this is how I became the veteran liaison for the university, because they were having problems. They couldn't communicate with them. They couldn't get, and I said, well, that's because you have not experienced what they did. Day one, I gained their trust immediately because I'm a fellow vet. Day two, I really got them eaten out of my hands because then they find out what I did in the military. So there's instant respect. So these levels of respect is no different than being a coach. You have to gain that from them and be able to build that rapport, that relationship. And over time, trust gradually grows. And not to criticize VA, because we know there's a need and there's a demand. However, I'm speaking personally, I was so frustrated and upset because I would go in with a therapist and I'm sitting there and I'm opening it take me a minute because again, you have to build that relationship, that trust. And I think 9 times out of 10, that person never served in the military. In fact, for me, just like
Mhm.
10 times out of 10. I don't think I've never had a therapist who served in the military.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Straight up.
and
Straight
so
up.
then you have that, there, and then, but you're trying to give in, and you're like, okay, I'm going to allow this person to do their job, and then the worst part is, but right when I'm at that point, and we're thinking we're getting somewhere, they bounce, and then they're gone because they either got transferred or they went to open their own practice because they got enough clinical hours for helping a veteran or helping working at VA because they just graduated from college, and then they're gone and they go open their own practice. And it's like, I don't know how many times I've been through that. And I'm sure your listeners probably went through the same thing. Whereas when coaching, there's no clinical hours we are restricted by or trying to achieve. We're simply serving the person the best we can. And that relationship could be 3 months or it could be 3 years. And it all depends on what that person needs from that coach. And again, the cost, I mean, you could say, well, I'll just go get a psychologist and I'll hire that person. Okay. And you're going to pay $200 to $500 an hour for that psychologist.
Easy.
And you're going to pay $500 to $1,000 for a psychiatrist. Whereas, a coach could give you a lot of the tools at a much, much better rate.
Not only that, but way more accessible, right?
And absolutely. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the problem is accessibility. Sometimes when we're going through some shit, you're like, "Hey, I need to get an appointment." Call, and they're like, "Oh, I can see you like 5 months from now." 5 months from now, I might already have 5 other problems that I'm working through. Like,
Exactly.
shit, man, if I make it to 5 months, right? I mean, good Lord.
That's
So,
absolutely true.
that's I would say another great benefit of having that coach is it just way more accessible. You speed dial.
Yeah,
I
I have
mean,
all my clients can get a hold of me anytime. We utilize WhatsApp and they can text me anytime. I tell them, I don't care if it is even the middle of the night, because you'll be surprised if, again, for people who,
things come up, man. Can't
hey,
sleep.
I'm in another country sometime. Half of my year, I'm in either Asia or I'm in Thailand or I'm in I say Asia, Thailand. I mean, Asian continents. And that's a day and a half ahead of us, a different time zone. So
Right.
you may think I'm still in the States, and I might not be here, which means when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you need me, guess what? It's only 2 in the afternoon where I'm at. So
Sure, yeah.
reach out to me. And I'm up half the time anyway at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I tell them time restriction for me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, especially with you got to imagine a lot of the veterans that are coming out nowadays have seen or been a part of combat. There was a large gap of years in between where a lot of people didn't see so much combat. So now we got a lot of guys in their 40s, 30s, and they're going through some major shit in their head.
Yeah.
And being a male, female, whatever, and you got a family, it's hard to be able to process and deal everything when you already got all this other stuff. You got a job, you got
Yeah.
kids, you got a household, you got to do all these things. So sometimes we don't even got time to process and get through what we got going on, and slow our ass down sometimes, and that's another problem, and I imagine as a coach and at that level, when you talk about mental health, it's important to have a clear mindset to have a clear path forward, right? Um, I think our mental health and sometimes the more crap that you have up there and you're not willing to process it, the harder you will have getting through other trials and tribulations that come your way,
Yeah.
and so I imagine that when you start working with someone, you want to see where they're at mentally, right first, and kind of see. Well, let's just do a head check on you and see where you're at, because sometimes you could find out like they're doing bad just straight up because they have a bad mindset right off rip, you know.
Yeah, so that's a great point. And I'll give you some broad examples because, like I said, I've been doing this for years. And one of the common things, and is also one of the biggest misconceptions, is the fact that, and you nailed it right on the head when you talked about the ones in 30s and 40 years of age. And they wonder, why didn't I have this, or why wasn't I seeing this problem early on? And it's interesting because I can always use my own examples, because when I think about when I first came out of the military, I was rock and rolling. I mean, I know we had this whole transition issue from being a soldier to a civilian. Yeah, I struggled with that. I even had some anger issues because I was looking at my left and my right, my flanks. I'm looking at people and how blah they were about life. And here I am. I just
Right.
got back from all these combat scenarios and you just taking life like it's nothing. Yeah, I had that problem too. But I was still functioning. I went to school. I ended up getting married. And I'm thinking, for the most part, when I reflect backwards, I thought I was pretty good. However, gradually, as years progressed, things got worse. So you made a really good reference of a point, because it's absolutely true. As more responsibilities start to pile on, becoming father, becoming a husband, having jobs, and then here's the unique thing about these. You start realizing how you're not performing as a father as well, or the husband as well, or you find yourself losing that job and you're thinking, okay, I just got fired, or maybe, okay, whatever reason that you justify, and then you go try to get another job. And being a veteran, it's not that challenging, because most people will say, oh, you're a veteran, and they'll look at your resume and they'll give you that credit because, again, you're a veteran. Okay, you already have discipline, you were a hard worker, so that puts you to the top of the list. So you get that other job, but then you find yourself losing that job again. And again, I'm speaking from my years of experience of coaching, but also from myself. And over time and years, you've realized something is not right. Why is it that I keep climbing and then I'm slipping? I'm climbing and I'm slipping. And you're absolutely right when you reference that the older we get, we're realizing it's not that we're becoming better. We're actually, in some aspects, getting worse, because the more responsibilities, the more expectations, the more we want. Because when you're 40, you should have a home, you should have a car, you should have this, you should have saving, you should have investment. All of these expectations is coming from everywhere. When you look to your flanks, and you're going, what happened? So there's more of that demand and more of that impact to your mental health. So again, yeah, it doesn't make my job easier. In fact, I'd rather grab a person right out of the military and then say, look, I promise you, let me be your coach now, so we can be able to avoid those obstacles that you're going to see in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. Because I don't want to say it's inevitable, but it is a high likelihood. So let's try to figure out what we can do to avoid that. But if you're already in your 30s, you're already in your 40s, 50s, and you're seeing all this, again, call me, reach out to me. And again, if you're looking for employment, if you want to make some extra money, call me, reach out to me. Because again, I have a long list. I have clients. We want to reach out to those other individuals, because maybe you don't want to be a coach, but you would like to have one. So it doesn't matter which side of the page. Is some reason I think we can find that by reaching out to me, we can figure something out. And that's kind of what I wanted to be on your show about, because I just, I've been working in this field a long time, and you have this great audience. I see people on your, looking at your podcast, you're responding on your website, and it's like, you know what, let me reach out to Brian, let me reach out to Travis and some of these other, veteran podcasters, and I need to give individuals a chance to understand this is an opportunity to make $300-$500 a week more, probably more than that, depending on your capacity, depending on your bandwidth. You can make, I have, I don't like to put people out there, but I have an individual who's making pretty good a chunk of money for doing this, because it depends on what you do and how you leverage it. You could be in a certain market in your area demographically and do face-to-face. That might be your choice. I know we talked about virtual. Some people want that hands-on, that feeling, that,
Yeah.
touch feely thing.
Right.
If that's your thing, you knock it, go ahead. I'm just saying that I can give you the tools to do it. And again, if you're somebody who just wants a coach, I have those opportunities as well.
And you know what? For the younger ones out there, I'm going to tell you, you may not think, like Dr. Bryant said, you may not think in your mind that like anything's wrong, because at the moment you think you're still that hard charger. I don't make no mistakes. I don't fail. All the things that we think, right? We come out hot, right out of the frying pan. But from me, like, man, 20 years later, I look back and I reflect how I was a bad dad for my first two older kids, right? Like I didn't do well. And that's because as I've gotten older, I've been able to go more out of that bird eyes view and kind of look at it at a bigger picture, not be so stuck in it, and not be, not able to see, or just think, you're so set in your ways, right?
Right.
That like fucking everybody's a Marine around me, you know. You know, even my kids were like, you know, if I tell you to jump, you better go now, right? Or you could die. You know, every situation, you know, became like I was a part of training, right? And I didn't know any better. You know, I
No,
really didn't, man. I really didn't. I came out thinking, you know, I'm gonna be a good dad, and you know, and then I'm stuck and treating them like they're all Marines and stuff. And then I look back and I'm like, damn, they weren't Marines. They weren't
no,
trained like me. They
yeah,
don't think like me. And my expectations on that were too high, right? And I expected something out of my kids that I didn't need to.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of it, man, is just not being in a healthy mental state, right? You know, my like I said, as I've gotten 20 years later, failed relationships, lost relationships, destroyed relationships, and now I'm on the trying to mend relationships 20 years later with ones that I've
yeah,
realized that I needed to amend, right? And
exactly.
know where I've made the mistakes. And
Sound like you
now
need
yeah,
it.
right, man. It's like, you know, I I needed one. I needed one. It certainly did, and I everybody can use one in every day of your life, really.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
if it's your wife, if it's your best friend, if there's just someone out there willing to hold you accountable and tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear, right? You know, because that's the thing. A lot of us out there, we don't want to hear what we need to hear. We just want to hear what we want to hear.
Yeah,
But we do need those people out there that are going to tell you, like, nah, dude, that wasn't really the right thing to do. You probably shouldn't have said that or did that. Or here's a better way we could have handled that situation, right? Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, I think that if I would have had a better mental health at in my 20s,
Hmm.
30s, and 40s would have been a lot easier, right? Because uh, I feel like in your 20s, you do a lot of damage. And then in your 30s, you're dealing with the damage. And in the 40s, you're trying to recoup and trying to correct the damage almost, right?
Yes.
So in your
That's if
50s,
you paid attention to it.
no, that's
If
it. And then you could even slide off and pass by,
exactly,
on by and never catch that,
exactly.
right?
You reflected on the fact what you did with your two oldest to recognize a lot of people don't do that. That self-analysis is important, and and I'm glad you said that and you understood that. But if you're not somebody who has that insight, you're going to continue to make those mistakes.
Absolutely. And in order for you to correct something, you have to hold yourself accountable, right? And sometimes that's rough.
It is.
Owning something that you were so hard about, but you have to eat it because you were like, oh shit, I was wrong.
Yep.
And then you're never the only way you can fix it is by accepting that part and saying, all right, I messed that up. I own it. And now we got to figure out how can we go forward and make it better and not find ourselves back in that same situation.
And part of that is also, even though you get to that where you felt, okay, I understand what I did and I own it, doesn't mean that the reciprocation is going to happen immediately. That
No,
person
right?
or the situation is not going to respond. So
Just
there's
because
a
you're ready doesn't mean the other party's ready, right? And
absolute,
sometimes in our mind, that's what we think. Well, I'm ready to, you know, well, no, that doesn't mean they are.
yeah,
You got to sometimes reflect back and you got to live with the consequences that you've created. But that doesn't ultimately define the situation. You can work on making it better, but you got to show action, right?
yeah,
You got to show people what you're doing because talk is cheap, you know.
yeah.
And that's what one thing is a lot of people are good at talking. They're good at talking to talk, and they're not so good at walking the walk, right? And you
And
know,
that's a
and
good point about coaches. One of the reasons that we choose the different fields is somebody having that experience. I'm not going to, if you're, say for instance, there is somebody who is good at business. I don't see them necessarily doing a physical fitness type coaching if you've never even been to the gym. You want somebody with a background of physical fitness to be a fitness coach. If you never worked in corporate America, why are you going to try to be an business executive coach if you only worked, worked at McDonald's? The point is that having coach experience before you actually become certified is key. So again, when people are looking to choose their coaching, it's a matter of having that background, because we don't want people who, for instance, never been married, and yet you're going to try to be a marriage therapist. Counselor.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, right. Yeah, it's like someone who never had a kid telling you how to raise a kid. Like, hold up, bro, you never even had a baby yet.
I don't want to make it sound like you can just call me up and you can get any license certification you want. No, it doesn't work like that. It definitely has to be something that we can be able to look at and reflect on, and yes, your expertise. We're definitely going to keep apples to apples.
No, for sure. And don't let that discourage anybody either, because there is a need for everybody, right?
Yeah,
and and
absolutely.
and and no matter what, you may be good at Pokemon cards. Well, there's might be a whole bunch of people out there who love the Pokemon cards, you know what I mean? um but just like anything else, it's all a matter of what fits you and in your personality. And it helps having someone that can kind of compliment you and help you, like I said, and push you along the way. Who couldn't use a little bit of help? There's a lot of us out there. We like to say, yeah, I want to do this and that, but we're just projecting that, and we're saying we want to do it, and a lot of times we don't do it because really there's no one there to hold you accountable, or there's no action there, right? So now you have a coach who's listening to you,
Yep.
and they're hearing you say, this is what I want to do.
Yes.
Then they're gonna hold you accountable and get you to where you need to be. I heard you said you wanted to be the CEO. Well, this is how we got to start driving you to get you there. Here's the
Absolutely.
courses, here's the things, this is what we got to do.
And also, there's a matter of understanding the work environment. Some of their
Sure.
teammates.
Right.
What are you doing on LinkedIn? You're looking at all the different spectrums around that goal. And that coach should be able to have that ability to understand, visualize, and be able to give them. So again, this is somebody who probably either was a CEO or worked in corporate America, has an understanding, has awareness to be able to help and be able to be a part of that growth. The important key thing is that coaches are not going to tell you what to do. They're going to be there to work with you. So there's a back and forth. And this goes back to what we talked about with relationships. Having that trust factor, having that bond, having that relationship where you guys can work together. I've never demanded or never pushed. It's always a matter of working with. And I think that has always been where my success is, because the clients that I've worked with have always felt comfortable knowing, and in the broad sense of the word, they were the one to achieve it. Now, yes, they have a coach, but the success came from them because they were part of the decision making. I was using my tools as a coach, just kind of put things out there and gave them perspective and gave them ideas, and we kind of threw things around, and they kind of
They
allow
built
my
the house.
absolutely. And
Yep.
it's important because they owned it. Now,
Right.
again, you're right. We hold them accountable and we remind them, but that ownership is there and allows them to feel that motivation because they did feel like, okay, I'm the one that has to do the work. I'm the one that, and we're working together. And that's so important for the growth of the person. And that confidence builder is key factor. Key factor.
Getting W's, wins, right? Just those wins in life, man. I mean, um, those little small wins help you really project you and push you away. Like the more that you can get the W's in life, we're gonna take some L's.
Yes.
That's just part of life.
It's like L for life.
Right. It's how you react to your L, and how you move forward with your L. But we gotta capitalize on those W's, and it always feels good when it's someone else's, when it's their idea and they see it go full circle and they're like, I did that. Yeah. Yeah. And you did. Let's take a moment. Let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that W.
And the thing is that when you take that L, I promise you, a good coach would. If that L was to happen, that L is not going to be a complete loss because if it
No,
was done properly, there's a risk factor to that. That L may not drop you to the lowest point. That L just might be just to the point of detour, and then you can recover because every decision you make should have a risk factor attached to it. So a good coach would identify that and work with the client, being able to say, if we're going to take this, let's consider the options. Let's consider what's going to happen. What's the reciprocation? What's the risk? How is it we're going to be able to benefit? How are we going to take a loss? And if we take the loss, what is our backup plan to that? So thinking things through, even with a loss, should not devastate the person to the point where you cannot recover. A good coach will be able to identify that if we get hit here, that's not going to mean the end of the road. We can have an option here. And then that's where you continue to keep the movement going and getting to that goal. Because ultimately, there's a goal. And whatever success that is, or if it's a promotion, or it's their own business, or maybe it's the hitting their 5th or 10th or 30th anniversary. Again, coaches have all different types of fields. And, I just really would like to be able to have people of their backgrounds become coaches so we can be able to help people in all the different spectrums. Because like you said, if there's a Pokemon thing out there, then guess what? If there's a demand, I'm going to find somebody to be a Pokemon coach.
right? 100%. Here's something you could use here. When you take an L, the L stands for learning. It's a learning opportunity, right? That's how I'm going to take that L. That L is not a loss; it's a opportunity to learn.
That's a good one.
So if you want to take the loss and go live in your and pout and do nothing and cry about something that ain't going to change by doing that, or you could take that L and turn it into lemonade and uh, take those L's, turn it, all that lemons and all that whatever, and turn it into lemonade, man. I mean, it's all in perspective, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, a loss can be just as good as a win in some cases.
it's
Um,
true. Absolutely.
and because sometimes, you're going down a path and you need to take that loss to put you in a better place. And it might even put you in a better situation at the end of the day. You know, things happen for a reason a lot of times too.
Well, yeah, again, I was on another show and we talked about that sometimes you don't really know what your true path is. We as people, we try to say we're going to do this or this is what I
Yep.
want, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean at the end of the day, down the road, you truly don't know what that may be available for you. Your talents could be something completely different, but
I
what
was
you're
supposed to
going.
be in the NFL, bro. I was supposed to be a firefighter.
That's what you said you wanted,
Bro,
right?
yeah, you know what I mean? I'm not dang it, man. I'm like, that did happen.
Because
That wasn't
your true talent came in something else, helping
right.
others,
Yep.
advising others, opening the platform for others. It's a spider web of opportunity, but we do not always know what's at the end of the road for us, and we
Sure.
cannot allow an L, as you say, to cause us to give up. Because the experience from that could absolutely open the door or give us skills or give us perspective of something else that could actually cause us to achieve. And you'd be surprised. There's no way I would have never thought I would be a doctor. I never thought that I would be doing podcasting. None of these things were anything
Yeah.
within my spectrum. I was supposed to be a detective, law enforcement, blah, 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 SWAT. I wanted to do all of that. That's why I went into special ops. I wanted
Yeah.
the training. I wanted all that. That's what I thought. And it didn't happen for whatever reason, but I find myself doing something else. And I still don't know what's at the end of the road for me. This is just, again, as I'm growing and building, it's still kind of open.
It's
It
just a
still
journey,
is.
man. It's a journey that's it's a never ending journey, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, I didn't for myself, I didn't even see myself doing podcasting. Talk to me about 2 years ago. I wouldn't have even if you would have asked me, I would have been like, podcasting. Nah, man, I'm good. But here I am, right? And you just never know where the path takes you. You stay the course, you stay consistent, you believe in yourself, you believe in what you're doing, and it will work out, you know.
True.
But hey, man, I appreciate you coming on and as always talking about what you got going on. Let's talk a little bit how people can find you, get themselves enrolled in this, become a coach. Let's get that going and send any
Yeah.
last thoughts.
Yeah, so I was sort of there's a man named Barry Fowler, and people reflect backwards, maybe not the young ones, but definitely if you're over say 30, you remember Sylvan Learning Academy, and they were everywhere, all over the world. And Barry Fowler, who created Sylvan Learning Academy, is the person behind this coaching academy, which is called FIA, Fowler International Academy of Professional Coaches. And so my certification is through him. He's actually my mentor and personally coached me. So I'm lucky enough to have that. And from there, I elevated to the level of master coaching, which means I've done all these hours of coaching and all this back in my background to be able to have this permission, if you will, to certify other people. And with that, through my organization, through this program, when you go to my website, you go to the last tab under employment, there's going to be a button. If you click and go through there, you'll actually get 2 courses of certifications instead of 1, because it's all certified through the FIA Academy, your certificate, nice and pretty and all that. But if you actually go through my program, you're going to get 2 courses for 1. And then from there, we're going to get you off and running. And again, I mentioned the fact that you're going to get certified life professional coach, which is always the number 1. And then we're going to talk about your second one. And that's going to get you up and running. From there, we're going to link in with my partners at Group Convert. They're the marketing firm that's going to turn around, put a program together for you, and we're going to get your clients. And your clients are going to onboard. By that time, you're already part of my team. I'm going to have you on the website. You're going to have your own bio. You have your own page. And basically, clients are going to start coming in. You're going to do your interviews with your clients, and you're going to onboard your clients. All of this is going to be done with my assistant. You're not going to be just thrown to the wolves. I will personally be there and advise you and work with you. You're going to learn my model of coaching in addition to what you've been certified for, and you're going to be able to go ahead and transition all those individuals. I will work with you on what's a good ratio to keep if you're married, you have kids, we're going to kind of make sure that you don't overwhelm yourself. You're not going to be alone. I will be working with you personally, and you'll be part of this team. It's a growing process. You're going to get better and better. You're going to get more time with people. And as we just talked in this last hour, it's going to be very much about building a relationship with your client. I always say that you'll know how well you're doing based on the length of the time you have with that client. So it's going to be a matter of time for you to really start seeing your results. But I will always be there with my particular coaches to understand, keeping a pulse on your success. And it's just a matter of just continuing to grow and get more clients. And hopefully you get to the point where you could probably, if you love it so much like I did, you're going to leave your other job and come do this full time, which is what I do. Other than volunteering at the hospital, this is me. This is what I do, and writing books. So you may want to do that. It's just a matter of you finding what it is that you have a passion for. But it starts with going to my website right here that you have put in, and we'll take it from there.
Outstanding. Man, like I said, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you continue to do for the veterans, for the community, for people in general.
Yeah.
You're amazing, dude. Always welcome here on the show. And
I appreciate it, Brian.
I try to share all your stuff as much as I can, man. Because you're a
You
busy
kept your
guy.
promise. You told me I could come back, and I was like, I'm gonna see if he's gonna let me come back, and you sure did. So I appreciate
Boom,
it.
man. I told you, you got an open seat here, brother. Shoot. Yeah, man. You're a great dude, man. A great human
I
being.
appreciate
I absolutely am glad to have you as a friend, a brother, and someone I feel like I could, reach out to if I needed help. And you can probably point me in the right direction as well,
I
so
got resources. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
but once again, I thank you. And if you just hold tight real quick, I'll be right back there. Enjoy the snacks, lots of crayons and stuff. But I'll be right back there. All right, friends and fam. Well, that's going to wrap up another great interview. I love Dr. Bryant. He's a great guy. If you guys go, please go check out his website. Um, hey, consider it. Can earn yourself some extra cash. Um, you know, sounds like you work from right in from your home. So go check it out. But anyhow, hope you guys have an amazing day. Don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see you guys all on the next one. Arr.